My fiancée said, "I'm charging you rent to live in your own house. It's only fair I get paid for putting up with you." The house was 100% mine. I said, "How much?" She said, $2,000 per month. I replied, "How about you pay me that for squatting?" When I serve her a 30-day eviction notice, I 36 male, bought my house 9 years ago. Foreclosure sale. Paid $127,000 cash. Every dollar I'd saved from 7 years of working as a diesel mechanic, first at a dealership, then running mobile repair out of my own truck. I didn't inherit anything. Nobody helped me. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner 5 nights a week for 3 years, so I could pay cash and skip the mortgage. The house needed work. Foundation crack, outdated wiring, roof soft in 2 spots, and I spent the next 4 years fixing it myself. Evenings, weekends, YouTube tutorials and trial and error. Today, that house appraises at about $285,000. I know because I had it appraised 8 months ago when I was considering a helic for a shop expansion. I didn't take the helic. I don't like debt, but I know exactly what the house is worth, and that number matters later. My fiancée and I had been together about 2 years. She moved in 14 months ago. She works as a billing specialist at a medical practice, makes about $44,000 a year. Not bad money, not great money, but enough to live on comfortably if you manage it right. When she moved in, we had a clear conversation about finances. I told her she didn't need to pay rent. The house was paid off, and I didn't have a mortgage. I asked her to split utilities and groceries 50-50, which came to roughly $400 to $500 a month for her share. Electric, gas, water, internet, groceries. That's it. She was paying $1,150 a month for her old apartment, so this saved her about $700 a month. Over 14 months, that's nearly $10,000 she kept in her pocket because I gave her a free place to live. I never asked for a thank you. I didn't need one. We were building a life together. That was the point. I should mention, I do well. Mobile diesel repair is one of those trades nobody talks about, but everybody needs. I've got 3 trucks now, 2 employees, and contracts with 6 fleet companies. Last year, I grossed about $340,000 and took home around $145,000 after expenses, taxes, insurance, and payroll. I'm not wealthy, but I'm doing okay for a guy who didn't go to college and started out changing oil at 17. My fiancée knew my income. I've been open about it when things got serious because I think financial transparency matters before marriage. Looking back, I think that transparency was a mistake, because somewhere along the line, she stopped seeing my income as a shared future and started seeing it as a personal ATM. It started about 8 months into her living with me. Little things. She'd suggest upgrades to the house, new countertops, a bathroom remodel, better landscaping, and frame them as things we needed. When I'd say I was planning to do them myself over time, she'd push for contractors. "Why are you so cheap? You can afford it." I wasn't being cheap. I was being practical. I'd built this house's value with my own hands, and I wasn't about to start hemorrhaging money because she wanted a subway tile backsplash by next month. Then she started spending more. Shopping bags appearing by the front door 3 times a week. Nordstrom, Anthropologie, Sephora. Not my business what she does with her money, except she started falling behind on her half of the utilities. She'd be short 1 month, late the next. Always with a reason. My car needed new tires. I had a medical copay. I forgot to transfer the money. By month 12, she owed me about $600 in unpaid utility shares. I kept a spreadsheet because I keep a spreadsheet of everything. Occupational habit. Mechanics who don't track numbers don't stay in business. I brought up the $600. She called me controlling for tracking it. I said it wasn't controlling, it was accounting. She said, "You make $145,000 and you're nickel and diming me over $600? I said, "You live here for free. The least you can do is cover your half of the electric bill." That argument didn't resolve. It just went underground. She stopped complaining about the utilities and started a different campaign instead. About 3 months ago, she sat me down at the kitchen table. The kitchen table I'd built from reclaimed oak, by the way, and told me she'd been doing some thinking. "I think you should pay me rent," she said. I stared at her. "Pay you rent? To live in my house? Hear me out. I contribute to this household in ways that aren't financial. I cook. I clean. I manage the social calendar. I make this place a home. That has value. And honestly, I put up with a lot. Your work hours, the grease on your clothes, the shop talk. That's emotional labor, and it deserves compensation. How much? $2,000 a month. Deposited into my personal account on the first of every month. I want to describe my emotional state in that moment, but I genuinely can't. It was beyond disbelief. It was the specific feeling of realizing the person sitting across from you is operating in a completely different reality. Like finding out your co-pilot has been reading the map upside down the whole flight. Let me make sure I understand. You want me to pay you $2,000 a month to live in a house that I bought, that I own, that I repaired with my own hands, that has no mortgage, and that you currently live in for free. It's not free. I contribute. Your contribution is $400 a month in shared utilities, which you're behind on. See, that's exactly what I mean. You reduce everything to money. My contributions are emotional and domestic, and they're worth more than $400. I mow the lawn. I maintain the HVAC. I fixed the water heater last month. I shovel the driveway. That stuff. I'm talking about making a house a home. I leaned back in my chair, took a breath, and said very calmly, how about instead of me paying you $2,000, you pay me $2,000 a month for squatting in a house you contribute almost nothing to? She laughed. Squatting? I'm your fiancée, a fiancé who's asking her partner to pay rent in his own house. That's not partnership. That's a shakedown. She stormed out, slept in the guest room that night. I sat at my kitchen table, and drank a beer and thought about things for a long time. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee. Asked if I wanted eggs. I said sure. We ate in silence. She went to work. I went to my shop. At lunch, I called a real estate attorney. First consultation, $275. Money well spent. I told him the situation. He said something that reframed everything for me. She has no legal claim to your property. The house was purchased before the relationship, entirely with your funds, and you're not married. But she has established residency, which means you can't just change the locks. You need to give her proper notice. In our state, that's 30 days. Written notice, delivered in person or via certified mail. I asked him to draft the notice. Update 1, the eviction notice and the escalation 2 weeks later. I sat on the eviction notice for about 4 days. Not because I was unsure, because I wanted to give her one more chance to course correct. On a Thursday evening, I sat her down and said, I've been thinking about what you said. The rent thing. I want to be really clear. That's never going to happen. But I also want to understand, is this about money or is this about something else? She said, it's about respect. You have all this money and all this property, and I have nothing in my name. How do you think that makes me feel? You have your car. You have your savings, whatever that is. You have your job. Those are yours. But the house is the big thing. And if we break up, I leave with nothing. We're not married yet. The house is mine. If you want to discuss a prenup that includes provisions for both of us, I'm open to that conversation. A prenup? You want me to sign a prenup? I said I'm open to discussing one. That's a normal conversation for people with premarital assets. Normal for rich people who don't trust each other. Is that what we are? I'm a mechanic. I'm not rich. And trust is built, not assumed. She cried. Called me cold. Said I'd never loved her. The usual escalation playbook. I stayed calm. I didn't raise my voice. And when she was done, I said, I need you to start paying your utility share on time. I need the $600 you owe. And I need the rent conversation to be permanently off the table. If those 3 things happen, we move forward. She said fine. But the way she said it, flat, with her jaw tight, told me nothing was fine. For days later, I came home to find she'd changed the Wi-Fi password. In my house. On my router. On the internet service in my name. What's the new Wi-Fi password? I changed it. If you want it, we can discuss the rent situation. She was holding the internet hostage. In my own home. Like a 13-year-old trying to leverage screen time. I walked to the router, factory reset it, set up a new network with a new password, and didn't share it with her. She said, you can't do that. It's my router. On my internet plan. In my house. I just did. This is abuse. This is network administration. That night, I printed the 30-day eviction notice on my home printer. Hand-delivered it to her the next morning before she left for work. I placed it on the kitchen counter next to her coffee. She picked it up, read it, looked at me. You're evicting me. I'm giving you 30 days notice to vacate my property as required by state law. I'm your fiancé. You are my fiancée. The engagement is over. Because of a conversation about rent, because you asked me to pay you to live in my own home, you're $600 behind on the only bill I asked you to split. You changed my Wi-Fi password as a negotiation tactic, and you spent the last 3 months treating my income like your entitlement. This isn't about rent. This is about who you turn out to be. She threw the coffee mug, not at me, at the sink. It shattered. Colombian roast everywhere. That mug was from Snap-on Truck Tool Fair in 2019. I like that mug. She grabbed her purse and left for work. I cleaned up the coffee, swept up the ceramic, and went to my shop. At lunch, I sent a copy of the eviction notice via certified mail to cover my legal bases. Belt and suspenders. That evening, she came home with reinforcements. Her mother. Her mother is a retired school administrator. The kind of woman who runs everything and everyone and believes that volume equals authority. She walked into my house, like she was conducting a parent-teacher conference where I was the failing student. You're throwing my daughter out on the street. I'm giving her 30 days to find alternative housing. That's legally required notice. It's also more than generous. She gave up her apartment to move in with you. She gave up her independence. She saved $700 a month by not paying rent here. Over 14 months, that's nearly $10,000 she could have put into savings. Did she? Silence. Because we both knew the answer was no. That money went to Nordstrom and Anthropologie. Her mother pivoted. You know, a real man takes care of his woman. He doesn't keep score. A real partner doesn't demand $2,000 a month to live in someone else's paid-off house. And I wasn't keeping score until she fell behind on the only thing I asked her to pay. You're going to regret this. She's the best thing that ever happened to you. Ma'am, I mean this respectfully. The best thing that ever happened to me was buying this house for cash at a foreclosure auction when I was 27. Your daughter is the most expensive thing that happened to me. There's a difference. Her mother turned genuinely red, like cardiovascularly red. She said, "We'll see what a judge thinks about this." The attorney I consulted says the judge will think the notice is legally sound, but she's welcome to hire her own attorney and find out. They left together. Her mother drove. My fiancé didn't look at me on the way out. Over the next few days, the entitlement escalated in ways I didn't anticipate. First, she stopped paying utilities entirely. Just stopped. The electric bill came due, and she flat out said, "I'm not paying a dime toward a house that's kicking me out." So I was now fully subsidizing someone who was counting down the days until she had to leave. Second, she started interviewing the house like it was a potential apartment listing. She took photos of every room, every upgrade, every piece of furniture I'd built or bought. She told me she was documenting her contributions to the property's value. I said, "What contributions?" "You didn't put up a single shelf." She said, "I chose to throw pillows in the living room. Those are a design contribution. The throw pillows cost $40 at Target. Combined, design has value beyond retail price." I genuinely didn't know how to respond to that, so I just walked away. Third, and this is the one that really lit the fuse, she told my mother I was financially abusive. She called my mom directly, cried on the phone for 20 minutes, and told her that I was hoarding wealth and refusing to share and using the house as a weapon. My mom called me afterward. She was shaken, not because she believed it, but because the accusation itself is serious. I explained everything. My mom, a woman who raised 4 kids on a teacher's salary and never once asked anyone for anything, said, "She asked you to pay her rent? In your house. $2,000 a month." My mom was quiet for about 5 seconds. Then, she said, "Change the locks the day she leaves." Update 2. The legal bluff and moving day for weeks later. Week 2 of the 30-day notice. She got a lawyer. Well, lawyer is generous. She found a legal aid consultation and got someone to write a letter on her behalf. The letter was something. It claimed that my fiancée had made substantial contributions to the property's value through domestic labor, aesthetic improvements, and emotional support. It claimed she was entitled to equitable compensation for the unjust enrichment I'd received from her presence in the home. It demanded either $15,000 in lump sum compensation or continued rent-free housing for 12 months. $15,000. For 14 months of living rent-free in my house while underpaying utilities and buying throw pillows. I forwarded the letter to my attorney. He called me and said, "This is no legal merit. She's not on the deed. She's not on a mortgage because there is no mortgage. You're not married. Domestic contributions don't create property rights in this state. This letter is designed to scare you into settling. Don't." He drafted a response. Professional. Cited the relevant statutes. Noted that the 30-day notice was legally proper. Pointed out that the claimant had no financial interest in the property, no written lease agreement, and no documentation of any agreement entitling her to compensation. He concluded with, "Our client has been more than generous in providing rent-free housing for 14 months. The notice period expires on date. We expect full compliance." Her attorney didn't respond. I was told later, through the grapevine, that the legal aid lawyer told her privately that she didn't have a case and couldn't represent her in any further action. She reportedly said the lawyer was useless and probably a man sympathizer. Week 3, she tried to rally the troops. She told my business partner, a guy who runs the second repair truck, that I was going through something and asked if he could talk sense into me. My partner, who's known me for 6 years and has watched me build the business from one truck, said, "He's the most sensible person I know. If he's doing this, there's a reason." She contacted 3 of my friends. Same pitch. "He's making a mistake. Please talk to him." 2 of them called me to say, "Your ex asked us to intervene. We declined." The 3rd never called at all, which I respect. She tried one more thing. She called the non-emergency police line and told them she was being forced out of her home and felt unsafe. 2 officers showed up at the house on a Tuesday evening. I was in the garage changing oil in one of my work trucks. The officers were professional. They asked me what was going on. I showed them the eviction notice, the certified mail receipt, and my attorney's letter. I showed them the deed with my name on it. I explained that she was a former fiancée who'd been given proper legal notice. One of the officers looked at the paperwork and said, "This all looks in order." The other asked if there had been any threats or violence. I said no. They asked her the same. She said no, but added that she felt emotionally unsafe. The officer, and I give him credit for this, said very politely, "Ma'am, this appears to be a civil matter regarding proper notice to vacate. If you feel the notice is improper, your recourse is through the courts." They left. She stood in the driveway and cried. I went back to changing oil. Not because I'm heartless, because I cried enough over this in private and my oil wasn't going to change itself. Week 4. Moving day. She found an apartment. A 1-bedroom. $1,050 a month. Back to paying rent. Back to where she started, minus the $10,000 she could have saved over 14 months if she'd managed her money instead of her shopping habit. She moved out on a Saturday. Her mother came with a rented U-Haul trailer. They packed in about 5 hours. I stayed in the garage the entire time. I didn't supervise. I didn't help. I didn't obstruct. I just worked. At one point, her mother came into the garage and said, "You know she's taking the couch. That's her couch. She bought it. She can take it. And the dining chairs. Those are mine. I built them." She says she helped pick out the wood. Picking out wood at a lumber yard isn't building furniture. The chairs stay. Her mother stared at me. "You're a coal man. I'm a clear man. There's a difference." The chairs stayed. When the U-Haul was loaded, my ex came to the garage door. She stood there for a minute. I was organizing socket sets. I looked up. "This is really it?" she said. "Yeah. I could have made you happy. You asked me to pay you $2,000 a month to live in my own house. That's not happiness. That's a subscription service." She didn't laugh. I didn't expect her to. She turned and walked to the U-Haul. Her mother was already in the driver's seat, engine running, jaw clenched. They pulled out of my driveway at 4:23 p.m. I know, because I looked at my watch. The clock on the wall, not a fancy watch, just a shop clock I bought at a hardware store for $12. I stood in the driveway for about 5 minutes after they left. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that's both relief and emptiness at the same time. I went inside, walked through every room. The throw pillows were gone. Good. The couch was gone. I need to get a new one. The bathroom counter was cleared out. 14 months worth of products and bottles, just gone. The guest room she'd been sleeping in for the last 2 weeks looked like a hotel room after checkout. I sat at my kitchen table, the one I'd built, ran my hand over the grain, poured a bourbon, sat there for a long time. Update 3. Aftermath and resolution 3 weeks later. The legal situation wrapped up cleaner than I expected. After she moved out, her attorney's demand letter went nowhere. No lawsuit was filed. No further legal action. My attorney sent a final letter confirming that she'd vacated the property and that any further claims would be contested with documentation of the property's premarital ownership, the absence of any rental agreement, and the 14 months of reduced living expenses she'd enjoyed. Her response was to send me a Venmo request for $4,200. The memo line said, moving costs, first/last month rent, emotional damages. I declined the request. She sent it again. I declined it again and then blocked her on Venmo. Her mother sent me a handwritten letter. Actual paper, actual stamp. It arrived about a week after move out. It was 2 pages of what I describe as a guilt manifesto. She wrote that I destroyed her daughter's confidence, that I dangled stability and snatched it away, that I was the kind of man who uses property as power. She ended with, I pray you never have a daughter, because then you'd understand what it means to watch someone you love be treated like garbage. I read it once, put in the file with everything else. Didn't respond. The utility situation, she owed me a total of $840 in unpaid utility shares by the time she left. I've been tracking it in the spreadsheet. I sent her a final accounting via email, itemized, with dates and amounts. She replied, you're disgusting. I'm not paying you a cent, sue me. My attorney advised me that pursuing $840 in small claims wasn't worth the filing fee, time, and emotional energy. He was right. I wrote it off, literally, entered it as a loss in my books, took the lesson, moved on. Some money isn't worth chasing. That $840 was the price of learning exactly who she was. The social fallout was moderate. She told anyone who'd listen that I'd kicked her out with no warning, conveniently omitting the 30 days of legal notice, the multiple conversations, and the $2,000 per month rent demand that started the whole thing. A few mutual acquaintances believed her version. Most people who knew me didn't. My buddy, one of the friends she tried to recruit against me, had a barbecue about 2 weeks after she moved out. I went. It was the first social thing I'd done in over a month. His wife pulled me aside and said, for what it's worth, she called me too. Told me you were financially abusive. I told her that a man who lets someone live in his paid-off house for free is the opposite of abusive. She hung up on me. I thanked her. She handed me a beer and said, you look like you lost 10 pounds. Eat something. She wasn't wrong. Stress had taken about 12 pounds off me. I ate 3 burgers. The $600 she originally owed me before the eviction notice, never got it. Combined with the additional $240 in unpaid utilities during the notice period, she left owing me $840 total. That's on top of the 14 months of free rent that, at fair market rate for a room in my house, would have been at least $800 per month. So roughly $11,200 in rent she never paid. Total value of my generosity to this woman over 14 months, approximately $12,000 between free housing and unpaid utilities. Total gratitude received, a demand for $2,000 per month, and a Venmo request for emotional damages. The ring. Almost forgot. She'd been wearing the engagement ring, a $3,200 ring I'd bought. Nothing extravagant, but decent. After the breakup, she didn't return it. I asked for it via text. She said the ring is mine. You gave it to me. In our state, engagement rings are conditional gifts. Same law I'd researched thoroughly after the last story I'd read online about this exact situation. I sent one text. The ring is a conditional gift under state law. The condition was marriage. We're not getting married. Return it within 10 days or I'll file in small claims. She returned it on day 9. Mailed it in a padded envelope with no note. I had it appraised, still worth about $2,800 at resale. It's sitting in my safe deposit box. I'll sell it eventually. As for the house, I changed the locks the day she moved out. My mom's advice, and she was right. I also installed a Ring doorbell camera. Not because I expected her to come back, just because I'd learned that protecting what's yours requires more than trust. The guest room that she'd been using is now my office. I moved my desk in there, set up my invoicing system, and started doing my books from home instead of the shop. It's quiet. I like it. The kitchen table, the one I built, the one where she demanded $2,000 a month, the one where I sat and drank bourbon the night she left, is still there. I refinished it last weekend. Sanded down a coffee ring she'd left, reapplied the poly coat. Took about 2 hours. Looked brand new when I was done. I'm good at fixing things. Always have been. Engines, houses, furniture. The things I can't fix, the 14 months I spent with someone who valued my home, but not me, I just have to sit down and walk away from. Some repairs aren't worth making. Some things are just totaled. I'm not dating. Not because I'm bitter. Because I'm recalibrating. My business is growing. I just signed a 7th fleet contract. My 2 guys are solid. The shop is booked out 3 weeks. The house is quiet, and it's mine, and nobody is asking me to pay rent to sleep in my own bed. Somebody asked me the other day if I missed her. Honest answer, I missed the version of her from the first 6 months. The one who'd hand me a cold Gatorade while I worked on the house. The one who sat on the tailgate of my truck and listened to me talk about torque specs like it was interesting. That person either changed or never existed. I stopped trying to figure out which. My mom called me last Sunday. We talked for about an hour. At the end, she said, "You doing okay?" I said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Good. Now go buy a new couch. You can't sit on dining chairs in the living room forever." She's right. I'll get to it after I finish this bourbon.